Good morning. My name is Alex Saxon, and I am the worship associate today. Welcome to the Unitarian Universalist Church of the North Hills. Whether you have been with this church a decade or more, or this is your first time visiting, we welcome you. Whatever the faith and traditions of your past, we welcome you. Whatever your theological stance, we welcome you. Whoever you are and whomever you love, we welcome you. Wherever you come from, whatever your journey has been, we welcome you. Newcomers and guests are always welcome to participate in any of our church activities. If you'd like more information about our church or Unitarian Universalism, please talk to our minister, Reverend Jane Thickstun. You can find her contact information on our website. Please join us for coffee hour following the service. The Zoom link will be posted in the YouTube chat at the end of the service, or you can find it in the upper right-hand corner of our website. Again, welcome to the Unitarian Universalist Church of the North Hills. It is good to be together, even virtually.
Welcome, good morning, and happy Easter, everyone. Easter is a holiday of miracles. It is life from death, joy from sorrow, celebration from mourning. Easter reminds us that all is never lost, that the story continues as long as we are here to tell it. So gather up your worries. We are going to bury them beneath the ground and watch them transform into flowers of hope, pushing through the earth, reminding us that on Easter morning, love brings us back to life, calls us from sadness, from grief, from anxiety, into a world renewed and alive and filled with joy once again. Come, let us join together in the celebration of life.
Our chalice lighting today is brought to you by Andrew Pakula. In sightless night, terrors draw near. Nameless fears of talon and tooth. Hopelessness yawns before us, an abyss. Alone and unknown in the gloom, longing for the dawn. O sacred flame, blaze forth, wisdom brought to life. Guide us with the light of hope, the warmth of love, the beacon of purpose and meaning. Because we are all afraid of the dark, let there be light. Please join us in singing our opening hymn, Lo, the Day of Days is Here, number 259 in your hymnal, and the words will be on the screen.
Lo, the earth awakes again, Alleluia, from the winter's bond and pain, Alleluia. Bring we leaf and flower and spray, Alleluia, to adorn this happy day, Alleluia. Once again the word comes true, Alleluia. All the earth shall be made new, Alleluia. Now the dark cold days are o'er, Alleluia. Spring and gladness are before, Alleluia. Change and mourning into praise, Alleluia. And for dirges anthems raise, Alleluia. How our spirits soar and sing, Alleluia. How our hearts leap with the spring, Alleluia.
The 10th Good Thing About Barney, written by Judith Viorst, illustrated by Eric Blegvad, and published by Aladdin Paperbacks. My cat Barney died last Friday. I was very sad. I cried, and I didn't watch television. I cried, and I didn't eat my chicken or even the chocolate pudding. I went to bed, and I cried. My mother sat down on my bed, and she gave me a hug. She said we could have a funeral for Barney in the morning. She said I should think of 10 good things about Barney so I could tell them at the funeral. I thought and I thought and I thought of good things about Barney. I thought of 9 good things. Then I fell asleep. In the morning, my mother wrapped Barney in a yellow scarf. My father buried Barney in the ground by a tree in the yard. Annie, my friend from next door, came over with flowers. And I told good things about Barney. Barney was brave, I said, and smart and funny and clean. Also cuddly and handsome. And he only once ate a bird. It was sweet, I said, to hear him purr in my ear, and sometimes he slept on my belly and kept it warm. Those are all good things, said my mother, but I just count 9. I said I would try to think of another one later. At the end of the funeral, we sang a song for Barney. We couldn't remember any cat songs, so we sang one about a pussy willow. Even my father knew the words. Then Annie and I went into the kitchen with Mother. She gave us orangeade and butter cookies, and she left the box on the table so we could have seconds. I gave my seconds to Annie. I miss Barney, I said. Annie said Barney was in heaven with lots of cats and angels, drinking cream and eating cans of tuna. I said Barney was in the ground. Heaven, said Annie, heaven, so there. The ground, I told her, the ground. You don't know anything. My father came in from the yard and took a cookie. Big-mouthed Annie said heaven again. I said ground. Tell her who's right, I asked Father. She doesn't know anything. Maybe Barney's in heaven, my father began. Aha, said Annie, and stuck her tongue out at me. And maybe, said my father, Barney isn't. What did I tell you? I said, and yanked Annie's braid. Father made me let go. We don't know too much about heaven, he told Annie. We can't be absolutely sure that it's there. But if it is there, said Annie in her absolutely sure voice, it's bound to have room for Barney and tuna and cream. She finished another cookie and went back home. My father told me he had to work in the garden. I said I would help, but only a little. I told him I didn't like it that Barney was dead. He said, why should I like it? It's sad, he said. He told me that it might not feel so bad tomorrow. My father had a packet of little brown seeds. He shook some out on his hand. The ground will give them food and a place to live, he said. And soon they'll grow a stem and some leaves and flowers. I squeezed the packet open and looked down to the bottom. I told him, I don't see leaves, and I don't see flowers. Things change in the ground, said my father. In the ground, everything changes. Will Barney change too? I asked him. Oh, yes, said my father. He'll change until he's part of the ground in the garden. And then I asked, will he help make flowers and leaves? He will, said my father. He'll help grow the flowers, and he'll help grow that tree and some grass. You know, he said, that's a pretty nice job for a cat. My father and I planted all of the seeds in the garden. My mother made sandwiches, and we ate them under the tree. After lunch, we worked in the garden some more. At night, I still didn't want to watch any television. When I turned out the light, my mother sat down on my bed. She gave me a hug, and I said I had something to tell her. "Listen," I said, and I told her the good things about Barney. "Barney was brave," I said, "and smart and funny and clean, also cuddly and handsome, and he only once ate a bird. It was sweet," I said, "to hear him purr in my ear, and sometimes he slept on my belly and kept it warm." "Those are all good things," said my mother, "but I still just count 9. "Yes," I said, "but now I have another. Barney is in the ground, and he's helping grow flowers." "You know," I said, "that's a pretty nice job for a cat."
Good morning, friends. Hope today finds you healthy and happy. I wanted to share one final why with you. This why is a little longer than usual, but it comes from a beloved source and has a bit of a history lesson as well. Our last why of the campaign is from Lowell and Rachel Schwartz. UCNH came into being to provide a liberal religious voice in Pittsburgh's North Hills. Religious thought was then dominated by Orthodox doctrine as defined by the mainline denominations. No home existed for those who questioned the Christian story or wanted to examine other approaches to spirituality. Additionally, parents of our persuasion were especially concerned with the problem of our children growing up within this atmosphere. We wanted a spiritual home quite at odds with all that surrounded us. Today, perhaps this issue does not loom quite so large, but still, maintaining our presence as a liberal questioning voice in a largely Orthodox religious atmosphere, with its often toxic extremes, seems more important than ever. To be sure, our age and distance from the church limit our participation as members of the UUCNH family. Nonetheless, setting an example as a welcoming community and putting forth principles remains more important than ever. Rachel and I want to help sustain a vibrant, liberal beacon in the North Hills. Wow, that's a good one. We are in week 5 of our campaign, and we are 83% towards our goal of 346,500. Oh, so many of you have pledged. Thank you, thank you, thank you, thank you. And for those that haven't, please make sure you send in your pledge by mailing your pledge card to the church, or by clicking on the donate on the blue menu bar, picking pledging 2021-22, then clicking on the blue click here link and filling out the form. It's been a fun campaign, folks. Not what we wanted, but we're doing it. And you guys are pulling through great. Love to you all, and thanks so much as always for supporting our church home.
Now the green blade riseth from the buried grain. Wheat that in dark earth many days has lain. Love lives again that with the dead has been. Love is come again like wheat that springeth green. In the grave they laid him, loved by hatred slain, thinking that never he would wake again. Laid in the earth like grain
Hi, I'm Chris Hill with the Lay Pastoral Care Team. During our service, we create this sacred space for sharing within our community. It's a time to share significant life passages with the congregation so you can be held in loving care. I'll be reading the joys and sorrows this morning. We'll be placing a stone representing each joy or sorrow in the sand, representing our congregation supporting the sorrows and lifting up the joys. Irene Dinning has a sorrow. My stepsister, Dana Meadows, died last Thursday in Maryland. She was 73 years old and leaves 3 sons and their families. Dana's father was married to my mother. To Irene and her family, we say, we're holding you in our hearts. Dan Peters has a joy and a sorrow. Dan has been coming to UUCNH virtually for several months now. After last Sunday's exploring UU, he thinks he may have found a spiritual home after many decades-long journey. To Dan, we say, we share in your joy. Unfortunately, Sunday evening he went to the AHN emergency center and was then sent to West Penn Hospital. Despite many sticks and tests, they have so far not found a cause. Dan's update? On Friday, they got tired of me and sent me home. He asked for the congregation to send him a not yet familiar face, good thoughts for getting better. To Dan, we say, we're holding you in our thoughts. We now place one more stone in the sand for all the joys and sorrows that exist in our heart but remain unspoken today. We especially think of everyone suffering, directly or indirectly, from this pandemic. Please read with me the words appearing on the screen, understanding that here includes all those watching. Let us hold in our circle of caring each person here. Let us hold in our hearts those who are unable to be with us today. Let us hold in our memories those who have moved on. Let us find comfort in knowing that we are not alone.
I invite you now to join me in a spirit of meditation or prayer. So please settle in a little more comfortably and close your eyes if you wish. Allow your body to just relax into the sacred space that you are in. Breathe in deeply and breathe out slowly. Breathing in compassion and breathing out peace. We have come today, as we have come to many places in our lives, in the hope of renewal. We see around us the renewal of nature, the newly green and the grass, the flowers blossoming on bushes and trees, the sun slowly climbing higher in the sky. And within us, we feel the urgings for our own renewals, a joy which joins us with the joy of the countryside, once again blooming with life. Let this be our comfort and inspiration, that life continually renews itself and that we are able to join it with our own wonder-filled growing. Now is the time when we will clearly see the wonder of life, its power and its glory, and that even though things die, life itself is eternal and everlasting. May we know that we touch something like immortality when we know this in our heart of hearts. Let us continue now with our private prayers and thoughts in silence.
We know that our financial contributions to this congregation come from sacrifice and hard work. We are so grateful for this and commit together to ensure the funds we gather collectively do a greater good for ourselves and our world than they could have done alone. The Share the Plate recipient for April is Allegheny Land Trust, which works to protect land of significant value to our region's unique scenic landscape, biodiversity, and water quality. One of their current projects is to help save Gertie's Woods, which will create passive recreation opportunities, absorb heavy rainwater that would otherwise overwhelm Gertie's cut. Is it Girlies or Gertie's? Gertie's? Okay. Let me start from the top. We know that our financial contributions to this congregation come from sacrifice and hard work. We are so grateful for this and commit together to ensure the funds we gather collectively do a greater good for ourselves and our world than they could have done alone. The Share the Plate recipient for April is Allegheny Land Trust, which works to protect land of significant value to our region's unique scenic landscape, biodiversity, and water quality. One of their current projects is to help save Gertie's Woods, which will create passive recreation opportunities, absorb heavy rainwater that would otherwise overwhelm Gertie's Run watershed, and preserve wildlife habitat for a variety of native flora and fauna already calling it home. To donate, please mail a check to the church office made payable to UUCNH by April 30th with Share the Plate or ALT in the memo line, or go to the church website's donation page and select special offerings. Include the same words, Share the Plate and or ALT, when making your donation. Please join me in saying the dedication of the offering. The words will be on the screen. May these gifts in the work of our hands and hearts give power to all we stand for as a community of faith. The reading is by Lauren Isley and is from The Judgment of the Birds in the Immense Journey. On the edge of a little glade with one long crooked branch extending across it, I had sat down to rest with my back against a stump. Through accident, I was concealed from the glade, although I could see into it perfectly. The sun was warm there, and the murmurs of forest life blurred softly away into my sleep. When I awoke, dimly aware of some commotion and outcry in the clearing, the light was slanting down through the pines in such a way that the glade was lit like some vast cathedral. I could see the dust motes of wood, pollen, in the long shaft of light, and there, on the extended branch, sat an enormous raven with a red and squirming nestling in his beak. The sound that awoke me was the outraged cries of the nestling's parents, who flew helplessly in circles about the clearing. The sleek black monster was indifferent to them. He gulped, wetted his beak on the dead branch a moment, and sat still. Up to that point, the little tragedy had followed the usual pattern. But suddenly, out of all that area of woodland, a soft sound of complaint began to rise. Into the glade fluttered small birds of half a dozen varieties, drawn by the anguished outcries of the tiny parents. No one dared to attack the raven, but they cried there in some instinctive common misery, the bereaved and the unbereaved. The glade filled with their soft rustling and their cries. They fluttered as though to point their wings at the murderer. There was a dim, intangible ethic he had violated. That they knew. He was a bird of death, and he, the murderer, the black bird at the heart of life, sat there, glistening in the common light, formidable, unmoving, unperturbed, untouchable. The sighing died. It was then I saw the judgment. It was the judgment of life against death. I will never see it again so forcefully presented. I will never hear it again in notes so tragically prolonged. For in the midst of protest, they forgot the violence. There, in that clearing, the crystal note of a song sparrow lifted hesitantly in the hush. And finally, after a painful fluttering, another took the song, and then another, the song passing from one bird to another. Doubtfully at first, as though some evil thing were being slowly forgotten, till suddenly they took heart and sang from many throats joyously together as birds are known to sing. They sang because life is sweet and sunlight beautiful. They sang under the brooding shadow of the raven. In simple truth, they had forgotten the raven, for they were the singers of life and not of death.
Hallelujah, hallelujah, hallelujah.
We have wintered long enough. Snow on April 1st was just the limit. We have seen enough death for a year. We have been isolated in our homes long enough after more than a year. We have experienced enough turmoil in our political scene to last a lifetime. We have seen way too many Black lives lost for minor crimes or no crime, Black lives incarcerated out of proportion, Asian lives harassed and threatened, way too many people, children alone even, clamoring to get into our country because things are so bad where they come from. They come to our border looking for a better life and willing to risk even death for it. Too many mass shootings, too many killed by guns in general, too much violence in general. We have had enough. And yet, there sits the raven, like in Poe's poem, this grim, ungainly, ghastly, gaunt, and ominous bird of yore, saying, "Nevermore." There sits the raven of death on the branch, unrepentant, formidable, unmoving, unperturbed, untouchable. We have had so much loss as individuals, as a congregation, as a nation, indeed, as a world. The virus continues to rage throughout the world, taking lives and livelihoods, wreaking havoc on the global economy. In spite of the vaccines finally being available and getting into our arms, the virus continues to keep us isolated for a while longer still. It's amazing to me how few people I actually know who have had COVID, let alone died from it. And yet, I feel like I've been surrounded by death during this time we've been shut down. Our congregation has been hard hit, with 6 recent widows left alone during shutdown. We can add Carla to that list of bereaved women. Carla, who just lost her husband, Tom, at an early age, so quickly after he fell ill. Then, right after losing Tom, the raven of death came among us again and has just taken one of our nestlings. We mourn together our beloved Lorenzo, young, full of promise, yet full of despair. How can we ever sing again? An article in Christian Century by Deborah Dean Murphy reminds me that today is the anniversary of the death of Martin Luther King Jr. She says, "What does it mean this Easter to practice resurrection after an insurrection? Remembering that Jesus died from asphyxiation. Where is new life possible this year and beyond after so much suffocation and death in hospital ICUs and on over-policed streets?" I can't breathe, they say, in the streets and in the ICUs. We're reliving one of the worst cases of that right now as the George Floyd trial plays out in Minneapolis and on our TV and computer screens. How can we ever sing again? With so much tragedy, so much loss, how can we sing again? How can we feel joy again? How can we rejoice again? Jesus was tortured and hung up on a wooden cross, nails piercing his hands and feet, left to die a slow, painful death. Christians recognized Good Friday in order to make sense of Easter, something we Unitarian Universalists often skip over. The death precedes the resurrection, though. Something in us has to die before we can be reborn. We need to honor our grief, the hole in our heart, before we can start to feel whole again. We have to know sorrow to know joy. So, after a hard winter, after more than a year of hiding out from a virus, after a year of so much loss indeed, can we ever sing again? How can we feel joy in the midst of all this tragedy? We can take a lesson from the birds. We just heard in the reading, for in the midst of protest, they forgot the violence. There, in that clearing, the crystal note of a song sparrow lifted hesitantly in the hush. And finally, after painful fluttering, another took the song, and then another, the song passing from one bird to another. Doubtfully at first, as though some evil thing were slowly being forgotten, till suddenly they took heart and sang from many throats, joyously together as birds are known to sing. They sang because life is sweet and sunlight beautiful. They sang under the brooding shadow of the raven. In simple truth, they had forgotten the raven, for they were the singers of life, not of death. Life goes on. Barney's in the ground, and he's helping to grow the flowers. What a good job for a cat, and for any of us. The flowers are beautiful as they come back after long appearing dead. The crocuses, the daffodils are blooming right now, and I see magnolias and forsythia coming out. Life is reborn and resurrected all around us, and it's no accident that Easter is this time of year. I saw a little reading recently that says, if the sight of the blue skies fills you with joy, if a blade of grass springing up in the fields has the power to move you, if the simple things of nature have a message that you understand, rejoice, for your soul is alive. Rejoice, your soul is alive. The light is returning and the warmth is returning. The vaccines are happening. The earth is coming alive again. There is reason for joy even in the midst of all the sorrow and grief, even in the midst of injustice and tragedy. I found a lovely poem by Mary Oliver that speaks to this. It's called Don't Hesitate. And it goes like this. If you suddenly and unexpectedly feel joy, don't hesitate. Give in to it. There are plenty of lives and whole towns destroyed or about to be. We are not wise and not very often kind. And much can never be redeemed. Still, life has some possibility left. Perhaps this is its way of fighting back, that sometimes something happens better than all the riches or power in the world. It could be anything, but very likely you notice it in the instant when love begins. Anyway, that's often the case. Anyway, whatever it is, don't be afraid of its plenty. Joy is not made to be a crumb. Beautiful. And as I said in my column this week, Life is a mix of warm and cold, hard and soft, sweet and bitter. It seems our congregation has had a bit too much of the hard and the bitter this cold winter. And the trick is to find the sweet in the midst of the bitter, not wait for it to pass. Challenges will always be with us. Tragedy will always be just around the corner. We have to find that within us, which is able to sing in spite of it. As the great hymn says, while though the tempest loudly roars, I hear the truth, it liveth. And though the darkness round me close, songs in the night it giveth. No storm can shake my inmost calm, while to that rock I'm clinging. Since love is Lord of heaven and earth, how can I keep from singing? How can I keep from singing? Indeed, Easter is a celebration of hope. We find hope in the resurrection of life, whether we speak of the miraculous appearance of flowers from the ground or leaves on the trees, or whether we speak of the miracle of a Savior risen from the dead. What appeared dead is actually alive. The life that springs up all around us surges within us too. Let us find it. Let us feel it, and let us sing.
My life flows on in endless song above earth's lamentation. I hear the real, the far-off hymn that hails a new creation. Through all the tumult and the strife, I hear the music ringing. It sounds an echo in my soul. How can I keep from singing? But though the tempest round me roars, I know the truth it liveth. What though the darkness round me close, songs in the night it giveth. No storm can shake my inmost calm, all to that rock I'm clinging. Since love prevails in heaven and earth, how can I keep from singing? When tyrants tremble as they hear the bells of freedom ringing, when friends rejoice both far and near, how can I keep from singing? To prison cell and dungeon vile, our thoughts to them are winging. When friends by shame are undefiled, how can I keep from singing?
Now let us go forth with the faith that life is worth living, that defeat and adversity can be transformed into victory and hope, that love is eternal, and that life is stronger than death. And may that faith inspire us to live our lives with dignity, love, and courage in the days and weeks ahead. Go in peace, blessed be, and amen.